Now is the winter of our discontent, made glorious summer by this son of York.
Actor Ian Bartholomew playing Richard III at Nottingham Playhouse, and it's another story of allocating resources. This time, how much can we subsidise the arts as the cuts bite? The impact is being felt at many galleries and theatres in our region. According to Lost.org, which is monitoring how austerity policies are hitting the sector, the pain is being felt right across the East Midlands. The Nottingham Playhouse is the most recent to fall victim to the cuts, with Nottinghamshire County Council planning to end its £93,000 grant. The Derby Quad Arts Centre has lost £119,000 in funding in the last 3 years. The Leicester Theatre Trust, which runs Curve in Leicester, has had £362,000 cut from its funding since 2010. So across the East Midlands as a whole, Lost.org estimates that more than £680,000 has been cut from budgets. Well, the Nottingham Playhouse has just announced that it's beginning a consultation with theatre-goers to find out what they think about these cuts, and we sent Des Coleman to the theatre to find out how staff there have reacted.
Well, they're getting ready for tonight's production of Richard III, but sometimes it does seem as though there's more drama backstage than there is on the front. Well, let's go behind the scenes to meet some of the staff. As you can see, I'm in the paint shop. Now, this is where they build all of the scenery. Some people would say that it's the hub of the theatre. They're busily preparing for pantomime at the moment. Sarah, how do you think the cuts are going to affect the theatre?
Well, I was thinking, I don't think it's so much how they're going to affect the theatre, I think it's how it's going to affect the region. I think if you start cutting back on culture, it's not very good for Nottinghamshire, Nottingham, the East Midlands in general. How do you promote the area if you don't have things to show them of interest?
Now I'm in the green room. In fact, over my shoulder is one of the cast members of Richard III. But I'm talking to Mafara. Mafara, you've worn many different hats in this theatre. How are the cuts going to affect it?
I mean, it is quite shocking because, I mean, as an artist and someone who's worked behind stage, front of house, stage door, that an organisation of the size of the Playhouse is going to lose such an amount of money. It is literally like one of the lifelines of culture in this city and in this region, and it's and I think it is important that the politicians kind of rethink and reconsider their decision.
I'm in the marketing department. This is Alex. Alex, how do you feel about the cuts?
Well, very shocked. I think everybody is really. It's sort of come out of the blue. The fact that it's come halfway through the 2-year agreement is a bit unfair, really. I mean, that's a substantial amount of our budget.
And I take it jobs are on the line.
Well, it's not really something that's been discussed within the theatre at the moment, but potentially, yes, a substantial amount of our budget, and perhaps jobs will have to be cut, yes.
Well, we got some strong views in there. Well, let's see what people think out on the streets.
We need something to look forward to and do, so yes.
If it's necessary to cut the grants, then if it's going to other stuff around the city, then I think, yeah, maybe.
It would make a difference in the price, presumably, in the future, wouldn't it? And would stop my age group from affording to go out.
Tough times mean tough choices, not only in the arts, but in the services that everybody uses. It seems as though this is one drama that's going to run and run.
Well, we're joined by Stephanie Sir, who's the Chief Executive of Nottingham Playhouse. Thanks for joining us, Stephanie. First of all, a cut of £93,000, which sounds an awful lot, but what is your overall budget?
We turn over about £4.5 million, so it's about 2.5% of our turnover, or about 7% of all our funding.
So how significant is this? It doesn't sound a lot, 2 and a bit percent.
OK, well, it is significant because actually for every £1 of funding we have from the county, we unlock £16 of funding from other sources. So it is significant. It's also the 4th cut we've had in 6 years from the county. So
that hurts.
It hurts, yes, exactly. And it's a significant sum to the Playhouse.
OK, but surely everyone's got to take a hit at the moment. When we're talking about cuts, they're very stark cuts. They're sometimes very emotive. We're talking about services for the elderly, old people's homes, children's services, and Nottinghamshire County Council have told us that their priorities have to be the vulnerable, the young and the old.
Absolutely, we're not blind to that fact, nobody is, and nobody envies the position that the local authorities are finding themselves in. But this is really a conversation about money, and that's where we are at the moment. And I think what people need to recognise is the enormous financial value of culture to the region. Now, Nottingham Playhouse is only one theatre, but our economic impact per year is over £13 million. So as a return on investment...
bring in a lot of money.
That's what we bring into the region. And, you know, as we know, culture is the second biggest driver of tourism, and it's a massive economic driver. In East Lindsey, that district council's increased their spending from £50,000 to £350,000 a year, purely because they recognise culture is an economic driver.
It's making a very good economic case here, Edward.
Well, I sympathise with it, but unfortunately the facts of life are rather difficult at the minute. Every county council is having to reduce its expenditure because the national overall economic picture is difficult. We're spending £126 million a day on debt interest, just interest, and that's more than
my funding.
Several times over than your funding.
I have to say though, Edward, we did try very hard to find people in Nottingham who thought that the Playhouse should take this hit. Most people felt that they were supporting the Playhouse.
I support the Playhouse. I go to productions at the Playhouse myself. I drive all the way from far off Leicestershire to come to Nottingham to go to productions. It's a really good...
You might have to pay more in the future.
Well, I may have to, and I'm afraid that's how it goes. But overall, and I agree, it doesn't help you very much, but compared to other departments, my own former department, we had to take a hit of 24.5% reductions during the comprehensive spending review.
It's just tough is what you're saying, really, isn't it? It's just tough.
Okay.
I feel your pain, which is it's deeply helpful to you, but I mean, arts took a 5% cut compared to the 24% that other departments do. I'm afraid we are going through a difficult time. And your county council has to make a choice. Does it help the elderly, the infirm, or does it help the
Well, a lot of these
theatre?
cuts are being made actually by Labour-run authorities like Nottinghamshire County Council, Margaret, so...
I think all councils, whether irrespective of their political colour, are finding themselves in much the same position. In fact, if you listen to the Local Government Association and to members, to councils who are members of that association, part of what they're saying is that given the funding cuts they themselves are facing, they fear that in 2-3 years they won't be able to give funding to anything that they aren't compelled to do by law. And the real worry about that, and I sympathise very much with the position of the Playhouse, but the real worry about that is that then we will lose things which are preventative, the kind of care that stops a smaller child from being a customer of care services later on in life. So if things like that are going to go...
With these cuts, though, of course, there are suspicions too that Labour's trying to hit the middle classes when it comes to the arts.
I think we've got out of that, frankly, a long time ago.
So. Can I come in there? I mean,
sure.
One of the things about culture, and it's a common misconception, is that culture is for the middle classes. There's nothing wrong with being middle class, but it's actually for everybody. 70% of the tickets that we sell at the Playhouse are sold at concessionary rates. So it's not a case of just putting the price up and covering it that way. And the other thing I think people need to be really aware of is that culture generates more revenue than it costs.
So,
and
you'll be pleased,
we gloss over this and we view it as funding going outward, but actually it's investment.
And is it jobs too at the Playhouse that are at risk?
There's 120 staff at the Playhouse, and they're split roughly equally between the city and the county. Of course you want to protect those jobs, but those are real jobs, and that's real skill that we're keeping in this region.
Well, if this goes well, Leicester will soon become the city of culture. And to take your point about Lindsey, if Leicester becomes the city of culture, that will create a spillover of benefit, not just for Leicester and Leicestershire, but also for Nottingham, Derby and the surrounding East Midlands counties. So come on board and help us get Leicester as the city of culture, and we will all benefit.
Yes, we're
It's a bit of a grim picture you've been painting, though, isn't it, about spending?
Well, I think that's the reality that councils are facing. I mean, every council, certainly my council, are making cuts there's no way they want to do. They did not come into politics to make those kind of decisions, but if the money isn't there, then they've got very little choice.
So what can you do now, then?
Well, I think what needs to happen is people need to recognise the value.
Can you fight the cuts somehow?
Yes, we are. I mean, we have a lot of support, as you've said, and people do really value culture in this region. The city of Nottingham in particular has the most fantastic cultural offer, and people understand what that adds as value to their life. And it also adds to the experience of older people and disabled people and all sorts of people who we work alongside. So I think we've gone past that thing of, well, it's just for you people and it costs a lot of money. I think our real point is this is a very small amount of money. It doesn't save that many services, but it means a lot to the Playhouse, and we can do a lot with that money.
Can you go outside government to find the money?
We'll have to leave it there.
Stephanie
Stephanie Sir, thank you very much indeed for coming into the studio.